Darren Ganji here with Inside Sim Racing, and I'm here with Sean MacDonald.
Hello, Darren. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. So I think this is like at least the third interview I've done with you on Inside Sim Racing.
It is, and I think the first one was 16 years ago.
Yeah, 2009 was it at CES?
That's right, CES in 2009. Yeah.
So, and then I've seen you a handful of times between then and now, but I think the last time I saw you was at E3 in like 2015.
And we were there for Ubisoft's behalf to help them launch the crew.
Yep, exactly. So, man, I was so excited to see that you were coming, and so let's talk about the expo. What do you think so far?
First of all, I'm really happy to see that this expo has got this kind of attention on it in terms of the attendance and the number of vendors that came out to participate in this very first, very overdue show for the United States market. I met George about 16 months ago at the Flight Sim Expo. It has its own space. It's, frankly speaking, about the same size as this show in year one. So, I mean, that's hats off to George for all the hard work he did to pull this together.
I agree. Yeah, I've known George for, probably since 2019. I raced in his IndyCar league, Lionheart, which was so buttoned up. The Apex 6 here behind us.
So this is actually one of our more recent builds. When I mentioned in 2009, we were bringing the Apex to market, roll pitch yaw unit, similar looking chassis, right, with the shape of the top framing. And it was some years later that we incorporated sway, which is side lateral translation, and then we integrated surge, fore and aft longitudinal motion, and then in 2019 the bolt of lightning hit me about how we'd accomplish heave. And frankly speaking, I felt like we had a really compelling, very realistic, believable motion simulation experience, even with the 3, the 4, and the 5 degrees of freedom. But in the world we live in, if you are in business and you need to appeal to people to buy your product, in this case in 2018 or 2019 or so, 6 degrees of freedom is full motion, right? And it's a lot of cases it's in the specs, it's in the requirements. So we need to go out and we need to buy a simulator, and it needs to be full motion. So we kind of felt pressured in order to figure that out. So what's behind us here is, I don't know how many we've built to this point. Probably 150 to 160 Apex 6 units are out in the world. The heave mechanism, which is of course vertical up and down motion, was something I didn't want to do sort of a brute force lifting exercise. I wanted to figure out a mechanism to sort of continue that energy efficiency concept which we have going on in our product and our tech. So maybe getting a little ahead of myself here, but when you move a cockpit around, you have many different ways to do it. You can walk around this floor here and see many ways, right? When my father first built the first SimCraft, he balanced the cockpit at its center of mass, and he moved it with the power of a vacuum cleaner with very small forces. And the efficiency of that, the efficiency of moving in all 6 degrees of freedom had to be preserved. So the bolt of lightning concept or idea that hit me at Daytona was how to lift 700 pounds or so of weight without having to just brute force lift it. We integrated a class 1 lever ultimately into the roll frame to actually lift it very efficiently and be able to move it in a way that was not just throwing a bunch of force at it, but doing it in an elegant way that I think I know that a lot of race car champions and drivers that we work with love it. And
well, I tell you, I love it. This is the first simulator I drove being here at the expo, and it's amazing. Especially considering how far you've come since the first one I drove back in 2009, which was cool. but this is just unbelievable. So what's the price point of it? And this is full turnkey? Do you deliver full turnkey?
Yes, full turnkey. So we have, we really kind of have three flavors, if you will, of products that we always try to do. And one of them is to appeal to more of the hands-on types that want to save some money and invest some time, procure their own components or reuse what they've already got, and sort of do the systems integration, right? SimCraft builds everything in-house. We have our own
actuators and everything. You guys develop those?
Some of the actuators we use, we don't manufacture the actuators. We procure the steppers, and we secure the actuators from a vendor that actually knows what they're doing in terms of manufacturing actuators. But we will integrate the system together in terms of the motion pieces. It's really more the chassis that we build in-house, right? It's the structure that you see, the mechanics that are integrated into the structure, the mounts and the clamps and the brackets and things that we need to incorporate into that environment. So that's what we build. And kind of the starting point for us to get into our ecosystem is Builders Edition. And it's what we make. It's our motion technology, it's software to drive it, but here's a list of compatible parts that you can incorporate yourself, and you can save some money and invest your time. So that level of an Apex 6 is still very expensive. It's $100 grand.
Okay. I kind of figured it was going to be around that price point.
We've had a few people do that. Most people, when you're spending that kind of money, they don't want to invest the time. So our standard of the Apex 6, which of course iterates and constantly evolves because the world we live in wants to continue to evolve and incorporate new, better technologies, whether they be audio or visual or controls or whatever they are. That's 130 grand, and that's a complete system. And then, when was it, like 4 or 5 years ago, we decided to go to Cedia. You ever heard of that one? It's a home theater audio-visual show.
Yes, yeah, I've heard of it.
All right, so a lot of people here, of course, know about the Logitech Z906 5.1 1000-watt audio system.
I've had a couple of them on my systems.
Yeah, and of course it's great. It's sort of out of the box. It's got the integrated quarter 20 bolt spot, so you know, and it's loud. It's got pretty decent audio. But we were going to Cedia, and I'm like, we can't go into Cedia, an audio show with this. We got to up our game here. So we went to Rack Mount, and we integrated a Marantz audio processor, and decided to go with some Klipsch speakers, which also happen to have the quarter 20 threaded bung and integrated into them. And the audio system is genuinely better, and of course it costs more money, and we got this nice packaging with the AV equipment in terms of the rack-mounted PC. And so essentially this was an opportunity to kind of create another sort of elite tier for our product, where it's nicer stuff. It's not the prosumer stuff like the Logitech system. It's got the OLED screens on it, constantly having to keep track of all the changes and all the iterations that go on with that. Sometimes that causes problems, but yeah, so we have an elite level system now for the Apex 6, which is $150,000.
Oh, okay. I'm familiar with Klipsch too. I had a home theater system, and it's great stuff. So now your lineup has expanded quite a bit. So I drove the rear traction loss unit.
That's not what it is.
Oh, it isn't?
Well,
so what is it?
It's yaw.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so rear traction loss is no offense to anyone out there that sells them, it's sort of a marketing term, right? So I'm a technical guy, and I go by kind of the book, which is degrees of freedom. And the degree of freedom, the rotation around the vertical axis, is called yaw. If you go out and you actually work with motorsports people, which we do, they're going to call it yaw. They're not going to call it rear traction loss. I'll put on my marketing hat now, and I'll say rear traction loss is missing the other half of the equation, which is understeer, right? So those two things are constantly working together. And we got Tony Kanaan in here, which is a pro driver. You could probably sit down here and tell your audience better than I can on understeer and oversteer and their constant relationship in a car. And that one little setup change might change the relationship between those two things. But any setup is going to give you kind of a combination of both, right? One corner is going to be a little understeery, one corner is going to be a little oversteery. And so I think you need both of those. And frankly speaking, yaw occurs at the center of mass on a vertical axis. So the Grid 1, which you drove, if you go look at it, the mechanism of the rotation occurs at the center of the cockpit. And so you feel both the oversteer, rear traction loss, but you also feel when your car stops rotating. And so it's that sort of constant relationship of you're pushing through the corner or you're oversteering through the corner. And yeah, drive it again with that in mind, and maybe you'll have a different perspective.
I'm gonna. It felt very natural. Jens mentioned it was rear traction loss, but now I think the whole yaw concept. So I used to work for Sim Experience.
Yes, I did.
Okay, and I think I brought that to their attention that isn't this yaw? No, it's rear traction loss. But anyway, it makes a lot more sense the way you explained it.
Well, there's a story there. So Bernie and I got into it on the iRacing forums at one point about this very concept.
I think is what I was working for him.
Yeah, and I'll spend a little time debating and sort of trying to work things out, but at some point you kind of got to cut bait and just realize that you want to have your own philosophy and do it your way. Go right ahead. Like, it really is no skin off of my back, and hopefully it's no skin off of his either. I have no personal opinions. It's like, I think one of the problems this industry's had is like, and if you go over to Europe, you've been to Europe, right? I mean,
no, I haven't.
You haven't been over there? All right. So one of the things I've observed over there is people can disagree and they can be in competition, but they're still friendly. Like, they still want to learn from each other. They still want to help from each other. Like, I'll give you a great example. My neighbor over here. You haven't met Wani over here from World's Fastest Simulators Racing Fuel? He's an awesome dude. Like, and he's from, I think he lives in Switzerland, but I believe he's German, and he's got a racing background, and we're competitors. But I don't know what it is. We met each other at PRI, and he was also went into Jason booth. We started talking, and there was just that, there was an animosity. And I think the animosity shit needs to go away.
I totally agree. Yeah, the space is too small. I feel for it, even though it's growing. But I totally agree that the animosity needs to go away. And we're all in this to have fun, primarily. So that's great to hear. So let's talk about a little bit more about your lineup. So that's the Grid 1 that I drove?
It's the Grid 1. Little pat on the back opportunity for us. We put 6 of those into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum. Did you hear that they renovated that bad boy?
No, but that's awesome.
$65 million, I think, is what they poured into it. It is a magnificent redo of the facility. I actually didn't see the museum before the reconstruction, but of course we were intimately involved in reconstructing or the tail end of the reconstruction. Participated in the opening. It is magnificent, and they had some of their own ideas. The Grid 1 was a good option for them in terms of footprint, accessibility, not terribly complex. Everything's on board, right? So the PC's in front of the monitor, and it's like 4.5 feet long and less than 3 feet wide, and that's it. And but they said, "Can you guys build us an ADA accessible version of this?"
Oh, that's cool.
And I said, "Well, I'm going to say yes because I think we can, but we've never done it before, right?" And part of our history, having started 17 years ago, actually constructing, it's been, somebody comes in with their own idea, and it may be a variant of what we've built before, but we've never built it before. And I always try to say yes because, it helps our technology grow, it helps us evolve, it helps us discover new things. It's kind of like paid for R&D, if you will. So in this case with the museum, I said, yeah, I think we can do that. And then of course it took some time to get their requirements and figure out what kind of room we were working with. And it turned out, I think, pretty well. It's a little bit longer than our Grid 1. I think it's like 5 feet long. We actually got a wheelchair and used it to kind of figure out, okay, how much higher is this going to have to be, and what kind of ADA standards are we going to have to follow. We integrated a ramp with a kind of a flip-down flap, if you will. You roll up, and you're driving.
What about controls, for like hand controls?
So GSI, our new friends who weren't around back in when I mentioned 2009, they were gracious enough to donate one of their amazing steering wheels with their a hand clutch. And
Awesome.
And the hand clutch is used, of course, for throttle and brake. And then, of course, iRacing was smart enough to integrate or create this idea that you could have 2 throttles and 2 brakes remapped into your sim. So the museum said, well, you know, when there isn't somebody in a wheelchair that wants to use it, can we have like a removable seat? To which I said, well, I think we can figure that out. So we did it, and you know what it turned out, like this was sort of an unintended consequence of this, was that the seat was so high, like it's, you know, you're sitting in a bus, like it's very high because of the wheelchair. It's like you're sitting up pretty high off the ground. And so when we developed this sort of this modular seat that you can bolt in and out, it turned out to be like very upright, very high off the ground. And so the old guys like us have an easier time of getting in and out of it.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's like super easy to get in and out of. So that's led to some other conversations about, like, you know, just some elderly people having an easier time getting in and out of rigs. Because I know that that's a problem.
It is.
Yeah, and you know, something that we still are working on. You know, we've had a lot of time to think about this. You got to climb up into this bad boy, you know.
That was me being 6'4". It was not easy for me to get into that thing, but once I got into it, I felt like I was sitting at a race cockpit.
Yeah, and what I like to say is, like, people that invest in our equipment and have it at home or at their shop or wherever it happens to be, they are not getting in for 5 minutes. They're getting in for a duration. We've been asked for feeding tubes, like, integrated into this.
That's funny. So let's go back to the Grid 1 really quick, and then we'll wrap things up. But so is that your entry level?
Yes, the entry level for the Grid 1, and we sell a builder's edition of it as well.
Okay, what's the price point on that?
I think we actually were just going to raise it because of tariffs and some expenses that were increasing. We had it at 10 grand, and I thought that was a really good price point because it's everything you need except it comes with a seat, comes with electronic pedal control, mounting plate, of course, for your pedals, comes with a place for your visuals, no PC, but you mount those few components and it's a complete system.
Is that assembled?
Fully assembled. Yeah, we don't ship parts, man.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, no, we don't. Like, we did that at one point. Like, during COVID, we did ship a lot of what we called RTA systems back in the day, ready to assemble. Of course, it was during COVID. Nobody wanted you coming into their home. I had some clients that were, like, you know, household names, high net worth people that clearly had the funds to be able to just not have to deal with it, but they couldn't do it. So we shipped parts and we shipped boxes of things and instructed from afar. But yes, all the builder's editions come fully assembled, and then here's a sheet of all the things that you can go buy to put on it. And then, so behind me we have a couple of complete systems, which are our standard. We try to follow the same nomenclature as we do with our Apex units. So there's an Elite, which we've actually brought out into the world a couple times, but it's still not on our website.
Okay.
But it's a triple screen variant of.
Oh, okay, cool.
You know, it's a nicer seat, nicer audio, nicer PC, you know, nicer. So
what's a turnkey of the Grid 1 go for? About?
Standard's about 30 grand.
Okay.
Complete system. And by the way, it's built on a pallet. So it's like, we rolled it in here and plugged it in and turned it on. It was 30 seconds. It's a pallet jack, movable sim. And we did the same thing with our Apex CT, which is our middle of the road system. So sort of our bracket now is like 10 grand to 150 grand, and price points everywhere in between. The motion technology that you saw for the first time 16 years ago has tried to modularize it, try to make it so that it's accessible, and you know, we still have a long ways to go to be able to make something like this accessible to the general public. But when you're still building by hand and you're still building in the United States, the demands and the expenses are real, and there's only so much we can do to stay in business.
Well, Sean, it's been great seeing you again.
You too, Darren.
And thank you so much for taking the time, and I'm sure I'm going to see you again sometime in the future.
Yeah, I hope so, man. Are you going to PRI?
You know what? I was just talking about it last night with one of my new contacts, and I think we might be there.
Excellent. Well, just kind of a last thought there. This show might sort of really unseat what they're doing, or what they've been trying to do there. I haven't looked at it today, but they have a sim racing area or arena. I don't know what they call it officially, but attracted a lot of vendors last year. That's where I met Wani. I mentioned that earlier from Racing Fuel, and I looked at the map, and we're what's today? September, right? We're September, a few months away. We were the only vendor signed up to be there.
Whoa.
And there were like, I think 14 or 15 in that area last year. So by now, with only a few months to go, and us being the only vendor that's signed up to be there, I'm kind of thinking that might be in trouble this year, and this might have something to do with it.
I could see why. Yeah, this place, this has been amazing.
Yeah.
So again, Sean, thank you. One more handshake here, buddy.
All right, Darren.
Thanks so much for the time.
Great.
Sean MacDonald with SimCraft.
Thank you.